Here on page 14, we're looking at some of our definitions and some of the theorems that we have worked with already. And the way that we have it set up is we have it set up as a statement over here. We're going to make some statement, and then we are going to tell our reason, the reason what allows us to make that statement. So our first statement is a point on a line segment that divides it into two equal parts. Well, our reason there is the definition of two equal parts. We're right in the middle then, so let's say the definition of midpoint. A line or array that divides an angle into two congruent angles. Again, we've got two congruent angles. That's going to give us the definition of an angle bisector. Third one here on the page, vertical angles are congruent. Well, vertical angles are congruent. We can say that that is the vertical angle theorem. Perpendicular lines intersect at right angles. Well, perpendicular lines intersect at right angles. That is the definition of perpendicular lines. A line or array that divides a segment into two congruent segments. Well, we just had a line or array that divides an angle into two congruent angles. That was an angle bisector. This time we're dividing a segment, so that must be definition of segment bisector. If something equals itself, that's the reflexive property. And this is Mrs. Danhoff, and here's the way I think of it. Your geometry teacher may approach it a little bit different, but reflexive is sounds like reflection. So when you look in the mirror, you see yourself. So you look in the mirror, you equal yourself. Just a goofy little way to remember here. If we look at the next one here, two statements, one segment bisector and one perpendicular line. I need to think about this one for a second. Two statements. One is about a segment bisector, and one is perpendicular lines. Well, we've got a bisector and we've got perpendicular, so this is definition of perpendicular bisector. All right angles are congruent. Well, it's actually a theorem, and it's called the right angle congruence theorem. Right angles measure 90 degrees. Well, that is the definition of a right angle. And again, what we're looking at is we're going to be looking at these from the perspective of doing some proofs. So we're going to be making a statement about something. So in this case, we would make the statement, right angles measure 90 degrees. And then over here in the other column, we have to write down why we are allowed to make that statement. So the rest of these terms on page 14 are going to be continued on the next video.